Now, thereafter, the First World War ended, and then started a whole dispensation of the region. So you see, I mean, what Herzl is saying is that we will defend your interest in that part of the world. So that already regionalized the problem, even before colonization started. That was the deal. But actually, things, took a very definite shape right after the First World War, when Britain and France completely redesigned the Near Eastern former possessions of the Ottoman Empire. They invented new countries. It may pain Palestinian nationalists to realize that Palestine actually did not exist before then as part of as a distinct entity, either politically or even administratively. Nor did Iraq as such. Palestine was a concept in biblical terms, the Holy Land. Actually, there is no Arab name, as far as I know, for Palestine. It's called Palestine, which is a Latin word. It is something designed by imperialism following the First World War. Whereas Iraq, what is now Iraq, and all the problems that we now witness in the Middle East stem from that dispensation of the imperialists following the First World War. That includes Iraq, that includes Lebanon, and that includes Israel-Palestine. Iraq was then, what is now Iraq was then three provinces in the Ottoman Empire, which Britain decided to glue together. It had some geographic logic because it's the country of Mesopotamia, and it did exist in former times in the Arab geography. I mean, there was such a thing as Iraq. But then they took another country, which was Greater Syria, and divided it and redivided it, and now it is Little Syria, the present-day Syria. It is Lebanon, all part of Greater Syria, Israel, Transjordan, later Jordan, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. All these are shattered bits of what used to be Syria. If you had asked a resident of Nablus in 1912, 1915, what are you? He would say, I'm Nablus, local. But okay, larger than that. What? So if he would be one of the few intellectuals that were then thinking of Arab revival, which was then a movement of still of intellectuals, he would say, I'm an Arab. Previous to that, an Arab meant a nomad, a Bedouin. In old Arab literature, Arab, correct me if I'm wrong, but Arab meant, and until now, it is part of the name of Bedouin tribes, Arab XYZ. But with the advent of modern Arab nationalism, first of all intellectuals, then it became widespread later on, and I'll come to that. It became a national concept. But what he would not say, all right, what geographically are you? He would not say I'm Palestinian, because then the concept hardly existed. He would say I'm Syrian. And in fact, a commission sent by the United States to that part of the world at about that time, following just the First World War, the Crom-Helm Commission, ascertained that the majority of people in what then was defined as Palestine after the First World War regard themselves still as Syrians and are not particularly interested in severing from this larger entity. But it was in the interest of the imperialists to actually subdivide this area for their own reason. And the destiny for which the country called Palestine was created was for Zionist colonization. Well, it was at least part of the reason. And how do you know that it is part of the region? Look at the League of Nations mandate. Right? The territory became not a colony of Britain officially, but a mandated territory, which means that the League of Nations, of course, at Britain's suggestion, and Britain was the dominant power, gave a mandate to Palestine, to Britain to administer Palestine. Into that text of the mandate, the whole of the Balfour Declaration was quoted verbatim in full. Okay? And how do we know that Palestine was designed, by the imperialists for this purpose? Is the following fact. The mandate of the League of Nations made a provision, in the mandate there is a provision, that part of what was then defined as Palestine, namely the part across the Jordan to the east, Transjordanian Palestine, as it was then known, would be exempt from the provisions either temporarily or at least the provisions of the Balfour Declaration would be suspended or completely ignored in the case of Transjordanian Palestine. Thereupon, again Churchill, who was then colonial secretary, right, immediately divided Transjordanian Palestine and made it into a separate state, the Emirate of Transjordan. Okay? And thenceforward, from 1923, Palestine became known as that part of the world to which the provisions of the Balfour Declaration applied, which meant a charter for Zionist colonization. So at least in large part, the country of Palestine was invented for the purpose of Zionist colonization by Britain, by imperialism. It did not exist as a country or even as an administrative unit under the Turkish Ottoman Empire. What became Palestine, what now Western Palestine, Palestine as it existed for 25 years, between 1923 and 1948, just 25 years. What became Palestine during that period under the British mandate had been 3 different districts under the Ottoman Empire. First of all, the southern part, which included Jerusalem, was a district directed under the Sublime Porte, directly administered from Constantinople, Istanbul, if you like to call it. The northern part of what is now Palestine, what became Palestine, were 2 different districts, both part of the province of Beirut. Okay? So Palestine was created for that purpose, and we should never forget it, because I think that it is doubtful whether that territory in isolation, which was specifically isolated for the purpose of Zionist colonization, can serve as an isolated locus for the solution of the conflict.